Trigger warning for mention of suicide.
Hi, I'm Dennis Vanderginst. Join me in a series of entertaining and interesting conversations with entertaining and interesting people. We'll explore various aspects of the human experience and what makes life more fun. This is Uncommon Convos. Welcome, everyone. I'm Dennis Vanderginst, here as always with the lovely Dana Watkins. Before I introduce today's guest, I want to remind you all to please subscribe and like Uncommon Convos and check us out at uncommonconvos.com. And speaking of, we are going to have a great conversation today with Jesse Henry, probably better known to fans of the Bachelor franchise as Jesse Sulidis. Jesse was on season 14 of The Bachelor. That was the On the Wings of Love season with the pilot Jake Pavelka. And then she was a special guest on Allie's Bachelorette season. She was also a contestant on The Bachelor Pad, making her the first and perhaps the only person to do all three versions of the franchise. Since then, she's been able to spin her popularity on the show into opportunities as a red carpet correspondent, a host on ET Canada and E-Talk on The Bachelor. And she's now the owner of a Runway Bride, which does mobile hair and makeup, and also owns and operates Cosmetco, a successful cosmetic company. She's married to a former professional hockey player, Jordan Henry, and they have two beautiful kids, Jensen and Jet. I met Jessie many years ago when she and another Bachelor fan favorite, Gia Almond, participated in some charity events I'd sponsored. And I guess Wes Hayden from The Bachelorette was at one of those as well. And we've kept in touch via social media, but it's been several years since we've been able to see each other. So I'm so happy to have you here, Jessie. Welcome. And how are you?
Well, thank you. I'm doing great. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you too. And is my math right? Didn't you just have your second baby, Jet, 4 or 5 months ago?
Yeah, you'll be 5 months tomorrow.
Oh my gosh. And how old is Jensen?
Jensen's going to be 2 tomorrow as well.
Wow.
Oh,
They're
wow.
both 26 babies. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
March 26 and October 26.
Crazy. And by the way, I see what you did there with the Jordan, Jesse, Jensen, Jet, all J's.
Oh, yeah, we're all J's.
Yeah, we were all D's in my family. Well,
Were you? Yeah.
Siblings were. So how did you get back into shape so quickly then? I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who tune in via video that are going to be very envious of how you can rebound in 5 months like that.
I'm naturally a thin person, but I'm definitely nowhere where I was before. I'm just skinny and not toned is what I would call it. But it's COVID time, so all of our gyms are closed, and
Right.
the only workout, I'm upper body Roddy right now from lifting the kids, so I only have arm muscles, no leg muscles.
Well, and we're just doing the video from waist up anyway, so we're all good as far as that goes.
You can't tell.
Well, yeah, we've been trying something a little strange in the last several episodes of Uncommon Convos. We're asking the guest to ask themselves the first real question. So you can ask yourself an easy question or a hard one, but then you're going to have to answer that question. So what question do you want to ask yourself?
So I guess what's most suiting for the times right now is what I learned going through lockdown and COVID. Because this is kind of a curveball that nobody really saw coming into their lives. And, here in Canada, we've had several lockdowns, and just seems like every couple of months we have stay-at-home orders, and just life hasn't been the same. And especially having 2 kids in the house at the same time, you learn, you get creative. It really makes you get creative because it's winter and you're trying to find activities for your kids to do so they don't drive you crazy. And in a lot of ways too, you realize how important family and friends are because you can't see them.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, a lot of people have had to reinvent themselves because some people's careers have had to completely shut down in businesses. So it's amazing to see how people have been able to kind of pivot and start new careers and start new hobbies through this that you wouldn't have had the opportunity to before.
Right. And it has that happened with you? I hear the kids in the background. uh,
Oh yeah,
has that,
he's noticed that I'm in the basement and he's not, so now
now he
he's a
wants to be
big
in the
mama's
basement.
boy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So is that something that you've had to do with the pandemic, pivot and kind of change things up as far as career and family and things of that nature?
So for me, we just had to. It was scary at first because all of our business, like from my cosmetic company, um, came to a halt, and nobody kind of knew what to do last March, April. So we didn't have any orders in March and April. So I'm terrified. I have a 3,000 square foot warehouse. Um, but then, because most of my clients are the schools, so we do a lot of the cosmetology and aesthetic programs. We provide the makeup kits. So then everybody kind of had to like reinvent how we're going to provide content and learning. So everything went online, and but the students still need kits. So for me, I was able to continue providing the makeup kits and our services and delivering it now to the students. So yeah, there was definitely a little bit of a pivot, but I'd say the biggest was for my husband because he went into retirement from playing hockey and into a full-time caregiver now. So he's the one that's staying home with our son Jet while I'm going to work, and he comes in and helps as well. So we kind of had to juggle bringing two kids to work and managing it ourselves.
Oh yeah, that's got to be a big change for him. I'm sure, especially.
Did he
And,
go
and
into
and go ahead,
did
Dana.
he go into retirement because of the pandemic, or had he already
So he was
planned on?
always going to go into retirement just because I was due to give birth in October, and there's no way that I could have the two kids at home with him being on the road all the
Yeah.
time and run my business. So it was okay with one because I just made it work,
Hmm.
but with two, and especially two under two, it's impossible.
I
Yeah, for
bet.
sure. Well, and we'll probably revisit. I'm sure we will revisit the business and what you're up to nowadays. But most of the people who are listening in or who are watching probably know you from the Bachelor franchise. But obviously, you had a life before that. And I mentioned to you yesterday when we were talking that even though I've known you for a long time, I didn't know a lot of your background. You know, prior to The Bachelor. So I want to talk a little bit about that because I think it's interesting to find out, what a person who goes onto a reality show like The Bachelor, what their life was like prior to
Hmm.
that. So I was interested in finding out that you were involved in gymnastics, I guess, from a young age, gymnastics and dance. How that play into your life?
So yeah, when I was about four, my parents enrolled me in just like basic gymnastics, and right away they moved me to the competitive team. And then from there on, I ended up in like provincial level gymnastics competing. And then they had recommended just to help with my floor routine and just to help with grace on the balance beam. They always encourage their gymnasts to take dance. And then I like dance more than I like gymnastics. So I ended up quitting gymnastics and then going into competitive dance for years.
Um, at some point, you competed in something called the Miss All Canadian Talent Search. Is that
Yes.
what, or
So
pageant? I guess. What is that?
uh, is it are you talking about the Miss Indie or the Miss All
No,
Canadian?
this was Miss All Canadian that I was reading about. That I guess
Yes.
as a result of being in that, you signed with an agency, is what I understood.
Yeah. So I was scouted by a local talent agency in the area. And then next thing you knew it, I was in all the flyers, the catalogs, and music videos, and movies, and
Right.
whatnot, TV shows.
Okay. So, what age were you at the time that you get spotted by a talent agency because of being on
I
this?
want to say like 8 or 9.
Okay. And then, So that now you enter that kind of strange, from the outside, what appears to be kind of a strange life of a child actor, right, or a child performer. Um, and I understood that you were in a few different movies, RoboCop, the Santa Claus, some commercials, It Takes Two, etc. How'd that all evolve?
That was all through my agent. um, my just remember my mom would go to all the sets with me just to kind of keep her eye on me, and make sure that your kids don't get sucked into that kind of scary world that path you could go down. But yeah, I remember having my own trailer
Yeah.
for
Wow.
RoboCop, and I thought it was so cool because I had my own name on the door, and
That is
I had
cool.
to take pardon.
No, I just said that is cool.
Yeah, and I had to take time off school, so I thought that was like the best part of it. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of long days because as a child, I think it was only 8-hour days that we're allowed to work, but that's a long time to be on set for
Hmm.
for a 8-year-old kid. Um, yeah, it was I met so many different people and actors, actresses. I remember meeting Tim Allen. I'd watched him on was it Tim the Tool Man? What is
Yeah,
it called? The
Yeah.
Tool
television
Time.
show?
Yeah,
Full
we were
time.
just talking
Tool
about that
Time Tim.
earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of and I got to meet the actual RoboCop. So yeah, there's a lot of cool perks out of it.
Very cool. So you mentioned your mom, and you hear the horror stories about the stage moms. Was your mom like that? Was she pushing you
No,
into?
she was more. She let me have fun with it, and the hardest part was her teaching me how to properly smile because I thought just by showing my teeth I was smiling.
Mhm.
So
That doesn't
yeah,
work.
I would no, I just be like this. She's like, that's not smiling.
Now, most people are listening via podcast, but you'll have to tune
Uh,
in and watch the video just so you can see Jesse's showing her teeth. That's worth the video just by itself. Um,
but she would like put everything into it. So like if there was like a talent portion of a contest, she would privately hire my gymnastics or my dance coach to put together a routine for me. So, but it was a lot of fun doing it together.
that's pretty cool. Now, you mentioned the long work days. Did you also have to have a tutor? I mean, you have to take class during that time, or was that during, like the off season for school?
Yeah, so when I was in school, they would just send the work home,
Mhm.
and I would do it like in between, like being on a movie set. There's a lot of downtime where you're just sitting in the trailer waiting for them to call you for the next shot. So me and my mom would just do it together in the trailer. I remember her helping me, like if I had book reports, she would be helping me and almost writing my book report for me. Just because sometimes I'd be so exhausted at the end of the day that I just didn't have it in me. Um, yeah, it was tough doing both for sure.
Did you feel like you missed out on anything as far as not being actually in school during the time you were doing that type of work as a child actor?
Yeah, I felt that I didn't have as many friends in my school. I had like friends in my neighborhood that I grew up with on the street,
Mhm.
but I guess having friends at school was not till high school. I don't think I really had like a solid group of friends
When did
So
you stop doing that?
yeah,
when I got to high school.
Did you want to
I used to
stop?
get it was probably the second year of high school just because there was a lot of bullying from the older girls in my high school over magazine pictures.
Oh,
They would bring in the flyer that they would find with my picture in it and poke holes and throw it at me.
oh, that's too
Like
bad.
call me. They were terrible to me. So it kind of pushed me out of that because I just didn't want the attention of
Yeah.
the older girls harassing me. But the funny story to that is, as much as they were terrible to me throughout high school, they the most, like the majority of the girls that did bully me all apologized outside of high school when we were all in college. They all, if I'd run into them at a party or I'd run into them, at an event, they would took the time to apologize and talk about how terrible they were to me.
Did you feel that was sincere, or was it because you at that point had attained some level of fame that they felt they had to show you a bit more respect?
Maybe a little bit of both.
Uh,
A little bit of both. It was coincidentally right after I won the Miss Indy contest that the
Okay.
apologies started coming in.
right. And I want to talk about that, but before talking about that, since we're talking about high school right now, um, you and I spoke briefly yesterday, and I mentioned that I was completely unaware, and all the time that I've known you and the events that we've done together, that for some period of your life during those high school years, you were actually performing as a singer. And and yet I guess you mentioned that Jordan isn't much of a fan of your singing voice nowadays.
No, not anymore.
So
My sons are. My sons love my voice.
of course they do, of course. So I guess when was it that you developed this affinity for singing and performing in that way, and how did what I'm getting at is I understand that you had toured throughout North America in this company that did it was tributes to various performers, right? So how did that all come about?
So kind of like everything else in my life, where I had an idea one day, and my mom's like, "Okay, I'll throw you into a lesson." So she put me in singing lessons because I decided that I wanted to be Britney Spears. And
Fun.
after about like 6 months of singing lessons, there was auditions to do tribute singing. So I auditioned, and being a dancer, like growing up, I kind of had a little bit of a head start than some of the other girls that were auditioning to be Britney, because Britney was a dancer. So yeah, and we sang along with the music. Like the vocals were lowered, so I was singing with the music, with Britney's voice lightly in the background.
Right.
And yeah, I did all the choreographed routines. I still know some of the routines by heart. And
Well,
yeah, it was a lot of fun. We traveled all over.
and how many performers were in this troupe that would travel and in this tribute type fashion?
So it was me. I was the fake Britney. There was a girl, Priscilla, who was Christina Aguilera. And then there were five guys that were the NSYNC, and they were called Sync In.
Oh,
Did you ever meet Britney Spears? Were they aware of you guys?
No, no. I'm sure there's like a million different tribute artists, but that would have been a dream come true to meet Britney Spears. Still would be.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was so much fun, and we would travel like all over Canada. We came to the U.S. for a bit, and yeah, it was great. I was so young at the time, and everybody else was like in their late 20s, so they kind of looked after me. I think I was like 17 when I went
Wow.
on these trips.
so would your parents have to travel with you, your mom or any guardian
My mom
travel?
did. So anything that was far, like she didn't come to New Orleans though. But most of the ones that were like in like Southern Ontario, Northern Ontario, she would come with me.
So she didn't go to New Orleans, probably the one place you needed to have a parent or
Like
guardian
she
more
would have
than
wanted to go, yeah.
um,
But she knew I wasn't legal there, so she's like, we can't get in
that
any
doesn't
trouble
stop
anyways.
you. That doesn't stop anything in New Orleans. That's the problem. So you were 17, you said, about the time that you were doing that. And why did you
Yeah.
end that?
I don't really know, to be honest. I guess sort of
Ran
my
its
high
course.
school ended, and I went into I was going into college, so I thought that might be a little bit strange for me to have as my side job, like being in college, but also dressing up as Britney Spears.
So,
And then I also started. Uh, I did the Molson Indie. So when I was 19 is when I entered the Molson Indie contest here in Toronto, and then ended up winning and getting to go to Australia. And then I became the face of the series, basically. And for the next 2 years, I got to be like the media ambassador. I traveled to a bunch of the races, did like all the media events with the drivers, and I just fell in love with the sport. And that
Well,
kind of took a new career for me.
for those of us who are not Canadians that are listening in and may not be familiar with the Molson Indy, or who are not necessarily race car drivers, can you explain what the Molson Indy pageant is, and what it was, what your position was, and all that?
So it's the same thing as you guys have. So this, you guys have the Grand Prix of Cleveland.
Okay.
It's that
I
was one of the
believe you.
races that we did at the Berkey Airport. So
Okay.
it was used to be called Champ Car, but now it's the IRL, the Indy Racing League. It's the same league. Well,
Okay.
they had they merged, and then now it's just the IRL.
And
So
so,
if you like names like Scott Dixon, do you know that name? And no,
I shouldn't admit that I do or I don't, because I'm probably alienating people in the audience who are like, "What the hell? Why does he not know who
like
this
race car
is?"
fans,
Yeah,
yeah.
but
He's
this
Leo
is
Castronovas. He was the one on Dancing with the Stars.
sure. Yeah, no, I
He was
do.
in the he races there.
Okay, all right. And so you traveled as an ambassador for the league to the various races and events that were sponsored
Yeah,
by the league.
so yeah, basically all the majority of the races are in the U.S. So like I was in where were we? Cleveland, Texas, uh, basically Road America, everywhere. Indianapolis. We were in San Jose, Denver, Colorado. Uh, Basically, like kind of spread out all over. And then we did go. There's 2 races in Mexico, 2 in Canada, and at the time there was 1 in Australia.
Nice. And this was during college years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what
Yeah, and then
I was going to say. This is what prompted your friends from high school to now start treating you right and apologizing for how they had acted
my face
before.
was everywhere, all in the newspaper. I was.
Yeah. Um, Now, at some point, you also were doing more in the way of modeling and some more acting. Is that kind of simultaneous with this, or was there kind of an end to the Molson Indy, and did that propel you into the modeling, or how did that work?
Yeah, so that kind of opened a door to bikini modeling. Um, and I did a bunch of the swimsuit editions that are here in Canada. I did a bunch of those, a lot of fashion shows. So the swimsuit edition was so much fun because we got to travel. So we went to like the Dominican, we went to Saint Martin, we went to, where else did we go? Just like a bunch of tropical destinations to shoot. And then we went up to our cottage country that is kind of like your Hamptons. It's called Muskoka up here in Canada.
Okay. And again, was this like during your college years?
Yeah, college years, yeah.
So sounds to me like you couldn't have got much studying done. Where were you going to college?
Well, so I went to college at Humber, and my program coordinator and dean were the best with me. So I started the public relations program at the college, and they let me do. I did it basically from Indianapolis because I lived there for a year, and I would still do all the work. But then I was doing the PR for one of the race teams, so I was getting actual industry experience. So
it was like an internship.
let me-
Perfect.
Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. And I got paid for it. So I was getting paid in US dollars, which I was happy about. And yeah, it was great. Then the dean let me do this. He bent the rules for me to carry on. And
I'm sure that's
yeah.
not going to raise any eyebrows or envy for some of your friends.
Or people there now.
So as you're doing the modeling, I know you were also doing some music videos and things of that nature. Do you have any good stories about partying with the rock stars or the country stars that you
Oh,
were, hanging out with
oh
back
yeah,
then?
we so I don't know if he's popular in the U.S., but our Canadian artist Joey, I was in his music video, and my mom's best friend was his makeup artist. So that was always a lot of fun. Soul Decision, the Moffats, Aaron Carter. I was in one of his videos, and he actually ended up asking me for my phone number. It was so funny. And yeah, and I missed the call, of course. My parents answered the phone, and I get home. This is when I was like ages ago in my teens. I get home, my dad's like, some Aaron kid called. I'm like,
Oh,
oh, thanks.
Sad.
so you never ended up going out with him?
No, I never heard from him again after that.
He's like one
Um,
chance. That's all you get, right?
yeah. And then Lone Star, I used to party with often because I used to date the lead singer, not the older gentleman. They had a new younger singer come in when Rich went off and he did a solo career. So then, yeah, I was always hanging out with Lone Star and spent a lot of time in Nashville. And
just jet,
yeah, it was just
just living that jet set lifestyle. It sounds like.
yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And then I know you did a couple of movies, and or I'm not sure what your role was because I found the movies, but I couldn't get them to stream for me. But Shark City, which I know had Vivica Fox among other people, and then there was a Disney movie, the Camp Rock 2, with the Jonas
Yeah, the
Brothers
Jonas
and Demi
Brothers.
Lovato. Yeah. How did those come about, and what'd you do in those movies?
So those I was just an extra in. The only big role, Shark City, I had a role, so I was Banana Girl. So basically, I was just a typical girl in a yellow dress at the bar, and then the main character came in and we hit it off and made out at the bar. That was basically my role.
Nice.
That was a lot of fun that to be on that set because I became really good friends with the producer and the lead actor, and we're still friends to this day. So
Now,
it's a
it's a
lot of
good
fun
thing.
and
I was going to say, it's a good thing I didn't know this back in the day when we did our events together because I would have been introducing you all the time as Banana Girl. Um,
it's so
so,
funny because most of my friends that are actually going to be listening to this podcast don't know any of this about my life because I just never talk about that sort of stuff. They only know me from when they met me and
right.
on. The
Does
only
it
people that would
seem
kind of know this are like
So,
does
are
it
those,
like
seem
my
like a
good.
lifetime ago?
Yeah, it does. Like I still can't believe I'm like going to be 37 this year.
oh,
So
you're
it's
so damn old, girl. Wow. I want, by the way, those of you, her friends who are either listening or watching, I want you to start calling her Banana Girl from now
banana girl. Be better than some of the names they already called me.
on. Well, probably true. So did you get to hang out with the Jonas Brothers?
Not the Jonas Brothers, no.
No.
Um, but like through Shark City, that movie that I was in, because I knew the producer so well, he took me, the lead actor David Phillips, and Vivica was actually with us, and we did a Toronto Film Festival, and we did like all the parties with all like Philip Seymour Hoffman was at one of the parties we were at. He was like standing like right beside me. So we were like, with Jamie Kennedy was also went out for dinner with us. And that was my birthday dinner, because my birthday always fell during Film Fest. So they all took me out to dinner for my birthday. It was just really cool. Like I was hanging out with all these
Yeah, I mean,
celebrities.
you
And
you get to say you hung out with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Jamie Kennedy and Vivica Fox and Dennis Vandergenst and
Well, but what about Bill Murray? Was he there?
no, but
oh,
I wish he seems like a character and a half.
Yeah, he's my best friend.
Is he?
he
He
doesn't
doesn't
know
know it, but
Yeah.
yeah.
He does. My big thing was Channing Tatum.
Oh,
And I got
uh-huh.
to interview him on the red carpet, and I don't know how I kept it together, but it's so funny. If you look at the pictures of me interviewing him, I'm just like, Couldn't
Were you
believe
like
it.
out of body, like not even knowing what was
Yeah,
going
I was
on?
just yeah, I was just like, holy shit. Like, can you swear on here?
Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And he was like just as gorgeous in real life and the nicest human being. His publicist shot me down. I asked if I can interview him, and his publicist said absolutely not because I wasn't a big enough name to be interviewing him. And he completely ignored her and he's like, sure, I'd love to talk to you.
That's so
And
Of
he
great.
course
did
he
like a
did.
15-minute, yeah, and did a 15-minute interview with me. And I was like,
That's
Very
awesome.
nice.
take that, lady.
So, and we're going to get a little bit to some of your work as a correspondent on the red carpet, but it probably would make sense to talk a little bit about how most people know you, which is The Bachelor.
Mhm.
You've done all
Bachelor,
this,
yes.
yeah, you did all this work as far as modeling and performing and jet setting that you've described, and then along comes this little show, The Bachelor. How did that come about? Were you asked to audition? Did you kind of reach out, or your agent, steer you in that direction? What happened?
So it's funny. I had never watched the show before. My mom did. My mom and all of her girlfriends would watch it every Monday night at my parents' place, but I'd never watched it. And then I get a call one day from a producer saying that they're from the Bachelor franchise and they received an application, anonymous application with my name on it. And I thought that I was being pranked. Like friends were prank calling me because that's just like what we do to each other. So I took the bait and I went along with it. And then I realized when they asked me to Skype, I was like, oh, they're really taking this up to the next level. So I did a Skype interview, and it was actually the Bachelor production team. We did so I don't know who nominated me. Somebody did as a joke, and
Or was
Yeah,
it
I
your
just went
mom?
with it.
Yeah, or your mom.
Maybe, but she never
Right.
admitted to it.
That's funny, and probably whoever it was, if they did it as a joke, they're probably kicking themselves, going, "Why didn't I do it myself?" But yeah,
Yeah,
so
right?
so you do this
Yeah.
Skype. Did that lead to a vetting process? Beyond the Skype, did you have to come in for interviews or auditions, or they just said, "Hey,
Yeah,
we
so
like you"?
what I had to do, so they sent like a questionnaire out and you had to like fill it out or not. And then you had to do a video, a self tape, and you had to answer certain questions in the self tape. And then the last one was talk about or show one of your talents, like if you knit or if you cook. And I'm like, I don't do either.
Hmm.
So I decided what my talent was dancing. So at the time, the single ladies dance was very popular.
Mhm.
So I put on a unitard and I did the Beyonce single ladies dance, and
Nice.
apparently that was a hit. And when I went, they flew me a couple weeks later to LA to meet with all of them, and they made me do the dance again when I got there.
I think
Apparently, I was the talk of production.
I think we should make you do it right here now. Dana, you can sing it, and she can dance to it.
Nobody wants to hear that.
So anyway, this is like what, 2010, 2011, something along those lines?
It was like 10 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it was
some
2010.
okay. So, by the way, for those in the audience who may not be familiar with The Bachelor, and I can't imagine there are many or any,
Mhm.
tell us what is The Bachelor all about? How does it work?
So there was, on my season, there was 30 women. They're vying for the love of one man, Jake Pavelka.
Mm.
And yeah, it was a series of dates that you'd go on group dates or one-on-ones, and we all lived in the house together. And yeah, we just traveled all over, and basically all of us were dating one guy that ultimately at the end he chose one of us and proposed to, and
Right.
then they broke up.
Then they broke up. Now, was there money for the woman who gets proposed to?
No, so there's no money to be on the actual Bachelor, but there is if you become the next Bachelorette or if you go on to like Bachelor Pad or Bachelor in Paradise. There is
Okay.
money per episode.
I
Did you
have
get paid? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dana.
no, that's okay. I've always thought that that would be a horrible situation to be in as a woman. I mean, what was that like
Oh,
for you?
well, for me personally, I didn't really like her Bachelor, so I didn't care as much. I
Yeah.
wasn't really fussed about, and that's not my style either. To go talk about like whenever he'd walk in the room, they'd want all of us to jump up and run and swoon, and
Yeah.
that's just not my style. I'm a lot more laid back, and so I don't think that I was really cut out for that show because I really didn't care to go interrupt women to try to. I wouldn't chase after a guy. That's just not
Yeah.
me, and
Mhm.
I feel like that's what a lot of you have to do on the show to get time.
Yeah.
And I feel like because I didn't do that, I didn't really. I still there's like 5 girls left after um,
After you got
I went
booted.
home. But yeah, I didn't. I wasn't really into him, and I didn't know that he was a bachelor. So at that point, when I had flown in and we were in the hotel, so for 5 days you stay in the hotel and you don't know who the bachelor is, and that's where you can only leave to do like interviews, and that's where they do all the stuff that kind of leads into the season, the
Mhm.
intro packages.
Yeah.
So the first time that we knew who it was I think it was like before we went to the cocktail party. So they had told me it was either going to be Kipton, Reed, or Jake, and I was like, "Oh God, I hope it's not Jake." And guess who it ended up being?
So you actually meet several people before they start filming the show itself, and you don't know which one is
You
going to
don't
be the
meet the
Bachelor?
contestants.
Pardon me?
You don't meet the contestants. You only meet the production team.
Okay, but you knew of these three guys, including Jake.
Yes,
So you
because
met.
the production team told us.
I gotcha. Okay, so it's funny you mentioned about how to get kind of the airtime, you have to be fairly aggressive and make yourself so available to the Bachelor. I'm sure you've seen, and I hope the audience has seen some of the spoofs on Saturday Night Live where they're making fun of the Bachelor, and they have these women
The
talking one on
toddlers.
one, and then somebody comes along and it's like, "Can I steal him for a minute?" They sit down and shove the other
Yes.
girl out of the way. I've seen. I think most people have seen at least some episodes of The Bachelor. I have seen some, and of course, when I met you and Gia, I tuned in a little bit more. And when you guys were on The Bachelor pad, checked out some of that. But I wasn't an avid viewer. But it seemed like there was a formula that they applied to every episode where they had to have some drama erupt too between
Oh
some
yeah.
of the girls, and I know there's also the Bachelorette, which we'll talk about in a second. But it was kind of sexist, it seemed, because
Mhm.
they really wanted to have that cat fight, show up every
Yeah.
every
And you saw it
episode at some
on
point.
this season. I don't know if you just watched the season that passed. It was the worst to watch for the women drama. Like they were so brutal to each other that it
It
was really hard to watch. Like,
Yeah.
Was that real? I
yeah,
mean, this friction that they'd show, did that really exist, or was that made for TV type drama?
I'm sure it was because you can't really make it up. Like on my season, all of us were really good friends except for Vienna. She was the only outcast. Oh, and Michelle too. The only outcast of all the other women. All of us got along. We still keep in touch. We would get together for reunions after being on the show. We did reunions for years
Mm-hmm.
where we'd all meet in Chicago or we all meet in Vegas, and a couple like we'd do it twice a year. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. We did it with some of the other seasons as well. So there'd be like a couple um, people from like different seasons and Bachelor and Bachelorettes. So it was
Okay.
a lot of fun.
Now you mentioned Vienna. Was she the one who won that season?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Now you also mentioned that there'd be the proposal and then they'd break up. Um, I actually checked out the Wikipedia page of the Bachelor or the Bachelor franchise, and they had a listing there of who the Bachelor and the winning, woman would be each year, and then what came of their relationship. And it's funny that you
Yeah,
said
the
that.
statistics on you
Yeah, it's like
failed to
they stayed
yes.
together for 4 days and then they broke up. They stayed together for 3 months and then they broke up. What did anybody ever get married?
There's a few, yeah. Like I'm actually shocked by Ashley and JP's announcement of the ending of their marriage. I thought that they were gonna be one of the ones that stay together. Desiree and Chris are still together, I believe. Trista Ryan, Jason and Molly, um, Jordan and JoJo. They're actually my favorite together, Jordan and JoJo. She's probably my favorite bachelorette. And I don't know
So
any of the other ones that are still together besides like well Rachel's I forget the guy that she chose. Um
but
yeah, Rachel Lindsay's still with.
some people did find love then.
Yeah, some people did,
Yeah.
but majority didn't.
Do you think the majority of people expected to or actually wanted to? For instance, when you went on, let's say you didn't know it was going to be Jake, who you obviously didn't have much of an interest in to begin with, but were you hoping that when you were applying and finding out that you were going to get this opportunity, were you hoping that you were actually going to find love on national television?
I don't know so much hoping. I just thought it was going to be a good experience.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe you did fall in love out of it but I did it mainly for, the experience and just not knowing the outcome. Like I was 24 at the time, so I can't say that my head was thinking about getting married and settling down. Like I was 28 when I met my husband. So I don't think that I was really in the headspace at that time, but like you just never know. Like so,
Well,
when the right person's going to walk in your life.
now you mentioned other relationships having developed friendships that you maintained after the show. You continued to have reunions. You actually connected with some of the cast from other seasons of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette. And I know I mentioned at the onset of the episode today that I met you with Gia Alleman, who was another fan favorite from your season. And in fact, I don't remember I think it was Gia that I talked to first about participating in our fundraising effort. And she,
Yeah,
I
I think
believe,
so.
said, you got to bring Jesse on board too. And which of course we did. And also then Wes Hayden, and we'll talk about him in a sec. But so you obviously developed a fast friendship with Gia.
We did, yeah. It was after Bachelor and Bachelor Pad, and I actually went to New York a bunch of times and stayed with her at her apartment, and we would go out and she showed me the city. She came to Toronto a few times and stayed with me. So yeah, we had a really good relationship.
Yeah, and you came.
And actually, when she met, sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Uh, So when she met her boyfriend, Ryan Anderson, the basketball player, is when I had just met my husband Jordan, and we met in Florida, and we did Disney together as couples.
On my dime, if you recall. Remember?
Yes,
You-
yes.
That's right.
Yeah, that's why we were both there.
That's right.
Yeah, and then I remember her boyfriend knew one of the owners of one of the restaurants at Epcot in Disney, and like shut down the place, and we got to go in and have a dinner, just the four of us. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there the first weekend that me and my husband really were an item.
See, I mean, I remember meeting Jordan at that time. I didn't realize it was that new, and Ryan as well
Yeah, it
with
was brand
Gia.
new.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, and of course you and Gia had also been to the Quad Cities for our first event together, and then we had that, and you actually you
Yeah, that was
and
fun.
you and another friend of yours came back to the Quad Cities for another event. Gia wasn't at that one, the party that we had done.
Oh, Leah, my girlfriend Leah.
That's right. Yeah.
We were
So
on that boat. We went on that nice.
yeah, that's right. We won't talk about all that stuff, uh, but yeah. So, but it's interesting to know that that's when you and Jordan first, I guess, got together and started hanging out. But back to Gia, for those folks who are not familiar, unfortunately, Gia, who was a shining star, beautiful girl, great heart, a lot of fun, committed suicide in, was it 2015, 2014, something like that. And obviously you knew her, you were closer to her than I was. Did you have any idea that she was suffering in that way, that she would consider taking her own life?
No, and that was the hardest part about it is there were for our relationship, there was zero red flags. There was any insecurities that every woman has, um, but nothing that I would red flag it. And yeah, she always just seemed so positive, and
I,
we always had so much fun together that it took me by surprise.
and obviously from the outside looking in, you never know. I mean, look at Robin Williams. You never know
Mhm.
what people are
Yeah,
going
there's
through.
some suffering on the inside.
And I'm looking at some notes I've taken here. It was actually August of 2013, so that she took her life. And so the last time I would have seen her or talked to her, I think, was just a few months before that. When was the last time you had talked to her before that?
A week before, because I had asked her for her address. I was sending her out a wedding invite to Jordan and I's wedding, and
Mine must
yeah,
have got lost in the
so
mail, by the way.
we had a small wedding. We only had 100 people there.
I hear you. I understand.
Um, so yeah, I'd sent her out a wedding invite, and then I just spoke to her. Like we just had a conversation, and everything seemed fine. And I was hoping her and Ryan could come, like fly to Canada and whatnot. And then yeah, that was the last time I spoke with her.
How how was it that you got word as to what had happened? What was your reaction when you found out?
I think Nikki called me. Um, she found out right away from one of Gia's close guy friends. Or and then yeah, she called me the next morning is when she called me before any news of it came out to the public. And then yeah, we were all in shock. We couldn't believe it.
Speaking
Nikki was bawling on the phone to me. She couldn't even get the words out to tell me what had happened.
speaking of shock, Dana, you had some information that you shared about suicide and The Bachelor that I was shocked to hear.
Yeah. So, I was there was another woman from the same season that took her life, right? Is that right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Alexa
Yes. Yes. And then,
McAllister. Yeah,
yeah, one of the contestants from The Bachelorette also. And I had read, I don't know if there was bullying and things like that involved after the seasons. Do you know, with Gia, did she experience kind of trauma
I
from?
don't think from that. I know that Gia dealt with a lot of bullying from when she dated a New York Yankee. They basically blamed her for if something went wrong in a baseball, like one of the games or whatnot. But Gia was a fan favorite on The Bachelor.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, I think like there was still bullying, obviously, but I think it's really the women now on the show get it so bad because social media wasn't as big 10 years ago when we were on the franchise.
Right. You're right.
So now I think that the women just get ripped apart. Like you see some of the tweets, like, or the Instagram posts, comments, and it's just terrible. Like, how do you say that to another human being?
Yeah.
Um, so I think now it really has, but I just know that um, more of Gia's struggles. I think it because she had uh, a hormonal disorder. I'm not sure what the exact name of it is called,
Mm-hmm.
but it's basically like the few days before you're gonna get your
Mm-hmm.
um, time of the month.
Yeah.
Your hormones just go crazy, and it puts you in a really dark, bad place. And so for 2 to 3 times a month, I know that the lows were really low, and then she kind of pull out of it, and then so I just think, yeah, and back then there wasn't as much talk or help
Mm-hmm.
around mental health
Yeah.
as there is now. People are bringing more awareness to it.
Yeah.
So I feel like I don't know if she just felt uncomfortable or that she was gonna be a burden to put that on somebody. So that's why I feel like it's so important now that people talk about mental health and
Right.
that
Yep.
it's okay to have these feelings, to have these thoughts, to feel this way, and there is help out there
Yeah.
And,
because it can be so lonely.
and it is unfortunate that sometimes it takes, uh, tragedy like what's occurred with Gia and
Mm-hmm.
like I mentioned, Robin Williams and other folks that have been very public or the public has been made very aware of the struggles that people have been through. But it sometimes takes that
Yeah.
for there to be a focus on the problem and trying to find a solution. Hopefully, we're on the other side of that now, and we are seeing more awareness and more efforts being made to reach out to people who are struggling and offering assistance in any fashion necessary and available.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully that will continue to improve as the months and years go on, because I
Especially now during COVID.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely,
people,
yeah,
it's like people are so lonely. It's now more than ever. People need help and they need resources. And
hmm.
Yeah.
Well, this has really brought the tone of things down a
A
little
little
bit. So
bit.
let's
Yeah.
let's
Just a
shift gears a
little.
go back.
little. But it's a good thing to talk about. It's an important thing to talk about, and it's very topical, as you mentioned, especially with the pandemic and things like that. But like I said, let's shift a little bit because as I mentioned before, in addition to The Bachelor, was I right? Are you the only one that's been on The Bachelor, the Bachelorette, and the Bachelor Pad, or were you just the first one to do that?
I'm not too sure. I don't think there's anyone else, but I could be wrong. Bachelor Nation will know. So if
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
wrong,
sure.
I'm sure they'll call me out
The,
for it.
yeah, I'm sure they will. So
Yeah.
the Bachelorette, similar to the Bachelor, except it's a Bachelorette who is surrounded by 30 or so guys vying for her affections and attentions. Right. By the way,
Yeah.
we completely forgot to talk about the rose ceremony, the way
Oh,
that people are selected to go forward to the next episode, is that they are given a rose by the Bachelor or the Bachelorette, and that's got to be really demeaning, humiliating, embarrassing, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't get the rose. How did you feel when you didn't get the rose? Notwithstanding the fact that you weren't that into Jake, did it still make you think, well, what the hell?
well, I think the saddest part for me was that I had to say goodbye to the women.
Sure.
It's like being on a vacation with a bunch of your girlfriends. So
Right.
that was the sad part for me because I knew we didn't have a connection, and I'd
Hmm.
even said it to one of the producers. But at the time, you weren't allowed to not be interested in the
Mm-hmm.
Bachelor or Bachelorette. So
Hmm.
they basically told me if I was not interested, then I could leave, but then I would be responsible for all my expenses. So
Oh
Oh, yeah.
basically,
gosh.
every expense that had occurred, well, for me being on the show, and I'm like, well, I think I
Yeah,
like him now.
I can feign some interest for a bit here. He is kind of cute, but um,
Yeah, I'm like,
s- so what was your gig with the Bachelorette? I know you kind of made a guest appearance. Explain to
yes.
everyone what that was all about.
So yeah, I was. Oh, thinking now back to if there's anybody else in the franchise, there is Claire, because she was on The Bachelor, she became the Bachelorette, and she was on Bachelor in Paradise. So there's your
Wow.
answer
Okay.
for that one.
But Bachelor in Paradise is
But
not the same as the Bachelor Pad, right?
no, no,
Okay.
no.
All right.
Um, but no, I've lost my train of thought.
Talking
What was
talking
your
about
second?
your guest stint on The
Oh,
Bachelorette,
on The Bachelorette.
what happened with that? Yeah.
So yeah, for Ali's season, there was a guy named Justin Rego. They called him Rated R. And he had a girlfriend back home in Toronto, which is where I lived at the time. And his girlfriend reached out to me to tell me her name is Jessica. Reached out to say, my boyfriend is on the show, um, and she's like, can you put me in contact with the producers? And I'm like, well, I can't give you their phone number, but let me call them, and then I'll give them your number. So I did that, and then they ended up calling her, and then a couple weeks, I want to say a week later, they called me back. They're like, by the way, you're calling Ali to tell her. And I'm like, what? And so yeah, they brought a film crew to my parents' place and filmed me calling her on the couch, and yeah.
And so you busted him out. You busted his balls on national television.
Oh yeah.
So did he
We
get
sent
kicked
him
out?
home.
He got kicked out
Oh yeah.
because of that. Now
Yeah.
I saw something where you actually appeared and talked about that on I don't know some follow up.
The men tell all.
That's what it was. The Men Tell It All.
Yeah.
Was that about
Yeah.
that whole episode? Is that what that was? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But he didn't appear to defend himself, right?
No, he wouldn't go. So
Oh my
Because it was
god.
the
true.
funny part about yeah, oh, it was true, 100%. It's funny though, because about a year later, I met him at a reunion that the Bachelor franchise actually put on, and they filmed our first meeting because I'd never met him before. He had never met me, so they like made this huge spectacle out of us meeting for the first time. And basically, he was just like, "Oh, my bad, you were right." And I was like, "Well, what am
My
I gonna
bad.
say?" And then, yeah, but what are we gonna like? What am I gonna say?
Yeah.
So we just kind of went off on our separate ways, and I think they wanted it to be like a big, huge blowout of me
Sure.
losing my cool on him, but
Or
at the
vice
end of the
versa.
day, at the end, yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, like Gia and I hung out with him separately in Toronto after that, and he was actually a nice guy, just not a nice boyfriend.
Yeah. Well, it's good to hear that they actually take seriously that the folks who are contestants need to be single, because if they're not single, then they're obviously there just for trying to enhance their chances at a career or something. So it's nice to hear that that is something that was serious, and or probably still is, about the show. And speaking of the show, we mentioned the Bachelor Pad. So you were also on the Bachelor Pad, and
I was, yeah.
what? Tell everybody what the difference about the Bachelor Pad is between that and
So the Bachelor
yeah.
Pad was men and women all living at the mansion, and there was challenges. So every episode there was like a pie eating contest. If you won the pie eating contest, you were safe from elimination at the next rose ceremony, and you got to go out on a date. So you got to choose another person in the house, and you got to leave the mansion and have a date. So there was the relationship aspect of it, and there was also the contest aspect of it. And then at the end, the winners split. I think it was 100 grand.
Now you didn't last long on that one, did you?
No, I got myself in a little trouble
How was
early
that?
on, and yeah.
Trouble with the romance, or trouble with the performing the contest, or both, or what?
Just my angle didn't really work, and I think a lot of it is just the producers giving off certain information. I didn't like Craig in relationship wise as a person. Like he was a friend of mine, but they wanted to push us into a relationship because we did go on that first date together, but I wasn't into him, and So I think that's where I kind of pissed them off, where I wouldn't go to the fantasy suite with him because they wanted us to do the fantasy suite that night. And on the way in the car, I basically had to say okay after the date when he was like, let's get out of here. But then when we were in the car, we weren't mic'd up. I said to him, like, listen, I'm not like into you that way. Like, I don't feel comfortable. So when we get back to the house, I'm just telling people I'm not going to the fantasy suite because I was interested in somebody else at the time. And they didn't like that.
Yeah.
So
Now,
then they said that I was playing a double card, that I was, taking information here and then taking information there and whatnot. So yeah, they just got me sent home. And like Dave tried to save me, but it was too late. People had already cast their vote, type of thing, and I was sent home.
now, isn't there or wasn't there another show similar as far as throwing men and women together, and they had the contests? Another reality show. I can't. It wasn't Bachelor franchise, but I can't. That doesn't ring
I'm
a
not
bell
sure.
to
I'm
either
not a
of you.
big reality person.
I think there's a naked one. Are you talking about that? I'm not
That's
even
not
kidding.
the one I'm talking about. Of course, you would know that, though.
I'm not kidding.
I
I did watch a few episodes
is.
of it too.
You know, it's funny that you say, because what I'm thinking about, I know they have a streaming episode. It's something after dark, and I can picture. I know. They go back and see Julie, whoever Julie is, like the host, after they get kicked out. Nothing. Never mind. I'm
Yikes.
sure someone in the audience, you can write in and tell me what a dummy I am and what it is I'm thinking about. So anyway, let's leave the Bachelor franchise for a moment and talk about the opportunities that presented themselves to you. What you were able to capitalize on as a result of your popularity through the franchise. You mentioned earlier the red carpet work that you did, and I know you had a segment on E.T. Canada. Canada. Those of us who are south of the border just don't know how to pronounce the northern country's name. But anyway, so tell us a little bit about some of those opportunities that came after the Bachelor franchise for you.
So after The Bachelor, I was asked to be a correspondent on our news, entertainment news. So what you guys have is Entertainment Tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I did Entertainment Tonight Canada, and then I also did the Rose Report on eTalk. So after Monday night's episode, I'd go in Tuesday morning, and then that would be on the 5 p.m. news, like entertainment show, and I would just be kind of doing a recap. Sorry, it sounds like everyone's wearing bricks up in my I didn't realize how loud Kelly is here. Heavy feet up there. And so, yeah, it opened up a door to do that. And, I met one of my good friends through being on eTalk. And then I did a lot of red carpet hosting. So, like any of the film festivals, I did the Bollywood Film Festival. I did the Toronto Film Festival. I even interviewed Dana White from the UFC.
Yeah.
Just a lot of random hosting events I did.
Well, that's got to be fun. When did you stop doing that? Are you still doing any of that?
No, so in what was it, like 7 years ago now, my mom passed away.
Sorry.
And I took over her company. So my parents owned the cosmetic company together. They had it for about 30 years.
Oh, wow.
And then when that happened, I took it over, and now I fully run it.
That's Cosmetco? Is that how you say that?
Yes, the cosmetic company. Yeah. So I'd always like helped out, and did, when I was in between work, I'd always work there. So I'd worked there for years. So yeah, when she got sick, I had to pump the brakes on everything else that I was doing, and then I solely had to put everything into the company because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I'm there Monday to Friday all day, and then I also do bridal makeup as well, so I do that on weekends.
Well, that's got to be crazy. Have a couple of kids
Mm-hmm.
and be CEO of a cosmetics company and have the bridal makeup company as well. You mentioned Jordan having retired fairly recently to help with the kids, and which, by the way, as a Canadian, you must have thought you hit the jackpot having a, professional
I
hockey
think
player, right?
my dad thought I hit the
Your
jackpot
dad
because my dad. Me, I
you
could care less.
you knew it was Jordan that hit the jackpot, though, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
It's so funny.
so how do you
Yeah,
go ahead? There's a little bit of a delay with us. I don't know if it's because of where we're located right now, and I apologize for talking through you or over you on occasion.
no, that's I.
Um, but like I said, with all that you're doing, how do you manage to do that and all the daily responsibilities?
Lots of wine.
Perfect. Dana
Yeah,
knows
it's
what you're talking about.
yeah. Basically, at the end of the day, I start my day off, and then by noon, I'm like, I
Drunk.
can't wait to get home and have a glass of wine. Exactly.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, I've always been a hyper person, so I just need something. Go, go, go.
Mm-hmm.
That if for the first couple of weeks of COVID when we were in lockdown, I was going crazy. I'm not used to just sitting in my house.
Oh yeah. Well, and how? Like, what's the day to day? Are you back like able to get to the office now, or are you still working? Okay.
Every day.
Okay.
So
So
we get up in the
so what is the daily routine now?
daily routine. So I can get my kids up at 7:30 and feed them. We have playtime. We'll go to the park and make sure that they have one-on-one time with each parent. Pack up, get ready to go. We all go to work together, and
Oh,
then
that's
we
nice.
do lunchtime with them at my office. Then I put them down for their nap, and that's when I get to do my main work is when they're napping in the separate office area. So then we grind it out for a few hours while they're sleeping, and then Jordan will spend some time with them so I can get some additional work done and pack them all up, head home, do some
Crazy.
more outdoor playtime, cook them dinner, and then by that time it's like 8 p.m. and we just want to pop a bottle and have our own dinner.
So how do you divide the time between the cosmetic company and the makeup company?
So the bridal makeup is on weekends.
Okay.
So I'll
Bridal. Yeah.
it's like
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So it'll be like a Saturday morning. I'll be gone from like say 8 a.m. till noon, and that's my day. And Jordan will have the kids at home. Jordan's also coaching hockey right now, so he's 3 nights a week. He's gone as well, so he'll leave at about 6 p.m. and he doesn't get back till midnight because he coaches a team out here in the what is it, the Greater Toronto Hockey League.
Wow.
So
So yeah, we're
do you
a busy household.
do you miss the excitement of performing and the modeling and the traveling and all the stuff that you had been doing before taking over the cosmetics company?
To be honest, no. I feel so far removed from that. Like it's been so long that I've gotten. I'm in a new role now as mom, and
Mm-hmm.
my kids use me as a spit rag and wipe their nose on.
And you love every minute.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a new role, and way less. As any parent knows, you basically get zero time for yourself. And
But wouldn't trade
I
it
got all
for.
dressed up this morning, and I just was hoping that nobody would throw up on me before I came down to meet you guys.
All we know is what you've got from the waist up. Like I said, you may be pantsless underneath. Who knows?
Imagine
I
kissing myself.
I don't have any pants on.
Business on top,
So
party on the bottom.
that's that's the fun thing about Zoom and some of the other video conferencing medium is nobody knows what you're wearing underneath
No, exactly.
what the screens is showing there.
I
So
put jeans on today though for the first time in a while.
there you go.
Usually
Well,
I'm
we
in
have
leggings.
we have Zoom meetings with our our remote offices every day, and everyone is on for my office, everyone is on those meetings every day. I never know what they're wearing. Hopefully, if they're at their office, they're wearing clothes, but who knows? Anyway, we mentioned the pandemic, and you talked a little bit about how that's impacted you and how Canadians had been impacted by the pandemic. I'm just curious, over the past year, how did Canadians view the political divisiveness in the United States?
Yeah.
You just shake your heads and go, what the hell?
Eat popcorn.
I think so, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it's just, I don't even want to touch that because I know like how people are either super right or super left. So yeah, here in Canada, we have our own problems though too. But yeah, we just kind of like shake our head a lot of the time. And just
You pretty
hope for the
much,
best.
yeah. You hope for the best, eh? Never mind. That's my Canadian accent. Okay. I've really had fun with this, and I could go on and on, but it's probably time. Well, first of all, I want to ask Dana because she usually has some very strange, insightful questions, and I want to give her a chance to ask those if you have any, Dana. But stay tuned because we're going to play Would You Rather.
No, I don't. I think we should go right into Would You Rather.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You know this game, right, Jesse?
Yeah.
I do, yes.
All right. So
I just hope there's no celebrity names in it because I'm the worst with celebrity names.
no. Okay. So, would you rather give up social media or eat the same dinner for the rest of your life?
Ugh. It depends what that dinner is. It's
You can
mac
pick
and
the dinner.
cheese. I don't know.
Every day.
Pick the dinner. I'd rather give up social media. I couldn't eat the same thing.
Okay. Would you rather have, since we're talking about the pandemic, would you rather, because this is one of those symptoms that a lot of people experience with COVID, would you rather have no taste or be completely colorblind? Not blind, just colorblind.
Colorblind? I would rather have no taste.
Me too. I would eat all of the vegetables then.
Yeah,
Then you could be healthy,
So
right?
healthy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're gonna get more personal. Would you rather let Jordan date your best friend or your worst enemy?
Oh.
But then your best friend would become your worst enemy. So
Yeah,
my worst
right.
enemy.
All right. Good answer.
I'd rather still have my best friend.
Would you rather eat food prepared by your mom or prepared by Jordan? Now, I recognize your
By
mom
Jordan?
passed. Yeah.
I don't know because my mom wasn't the greatest cook. So, and I'm just a cook in our house. I guess I'll say my mom because I haven't had her cooking in a long time. So I would say
good.
my mom.
That's a good reason. Okay. Would you rather be rich and ugly or poor and good looking?
Probably rich and ugly because then I could just make myself attractive.
No, you
Money can
changing
buy
it. You got to stay ugly. You got to stay
Do I
ugly.
stay ugly?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be rich and ugly because then whatever. You don't have to worry about money then. You can...
Okay. Would you rather try on Jordan's clothes or have him try on your clothes?
I'd rather try on my clothes. That'd be
Yeah.
a better laugh.
I think so too. How much
Would-
taller
He
is
wouldn't fit.
he
Have
than
seen
you?
the size of my husband?
He's ginormous compared to you.
Yeah.
Would you rather be forced to sing along or dance along with every song that you ever hear?
Forced to sing along or dance along?
Yeah, every time you hear a music, you either have to dance or you have to sing.
I'd say dance. More fun.
Okay. Would you rather be forced to wear the same socks for a month or the same underwear for a week?
Ew.
The same sock. That's definitely the same sock I wear.
Okay.
I probably do wear the same socks for a month.
I feel like we
Good
should
point,
make Dennis
as
test
mother.
some of these.
Oh, well, here's a good one to test. Would you rather always have BO and not know it or always smell BO on everyone else?
Oh man, that's a hard one because I hate the smell of the oats. Ugh. I'd rather probably not be able to smell it on myself, but everyone else suffer.
Okay. All right. So this is the last one. Would you rather walk in on your parents doing it or have your parents walk in on you
No.
doing it?
No.
Oh God, both are terrible. I'd rather
No.
walk in on them because I couldn't imagine the humiliation. Because then maybe they wouldn't notice that I walked in. I wouldn't be able to face them ever again. If
Well, that's all I have. And I want to thank you again, Jesse, for being with us today. It was a pleasure catching up with you and getting to talk about stuff, like I said, I didn't have any clue about. And apparently some of your friends didn't know about as well. So
I know it's a random bag of tricks I have.
that, yeah, now we'll see. Now that they'll hear all of the dirt, you know, how many friends you still have after this. So, so anyway, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please be sure to subscribe and like us and check out the video of this conversation on uncommonconvos.com. Also want to make sure that you take a chance, if you have the chance, that you check out our other podcast, Legal Squeaks. Be sure to tune in for another Uncommon Convo next week. In the meantime, have a great day, stay safe, and I love you all.